Julian Assange. No extradition. No extradition.
Free Julian Assange.
Free, free.
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 Julian Assange.
There is only one decision.
No extradition. This is our 62nd weekly gathering in support of Julian Assange. That an innocent person can be detained arbitrarily for 10 years is inconceivable to most people until they realise that the innocent person we are talking about is Julian Assange, the brave journalist who published the evidence of war crimes, torture and corruption that implicates office bearers at the highest levels of government. Julian Assange is an innocent journalist, but he is not free. He is prevented from speaking, that we have greatly benefited from hearing his words. He is held in conditions considered torturous and illegal by the United Nations. However, the mainstream media maintain a virtual silence on his torture and the evidence of his innocence. Why should anyone trust what mainstream politicians and the media say after discovering the WikiLeaks revelations and learning how the mainstream politicians and the media have collectively helped to persecute Julian Assange? We now clearly know we must think and act independently if we wish to learn truth. It also becomes obvious that we must strive to attain unity with others in our community over our right to be truthfully informed. The biggest problem we face today stems from a lack of truth. The denial of due process in the case of Julian Assange shows us lawfare being used to hide the truth. It is therefore crucial that we unite and fight to free the multi-award-winning Australian journalist Julian Assange. All of our voices count. We must all stand up for Julian and work towards freeing him. If you have something worth saying, please say it. Don't let the torturers of Julian Assange successfully intimidate you. We cannot allow such barbarity to be successful. Speech is our power against oppression, and we must share the truth if we wish to be free. There are the liars who make up lies. There are other liars who are happy to repeat these lies. And there are those who repeat the lies because they believe them without having checked the evidence. Read the evidence for yourself. Julian Assange is totally innocent. Julian Assange is a true hero of truth. Truth must be our focus. We cannot allow ourselves to be distracted and divided by propaganda. We must unite on the most basic issue of all, our right to know the truth. A free press is free to publish information that conforms to the wishes of the establishment, but a free press is also free to publish information that the establishment would rather wasn't published. When important public interest truth is kept from the public, good people do their best to make it available. No journalist should be arbitrarily detained for publishing useful information. There is no easy way to accept that an innocent journalist can be persecuted for being exceptionally good at his job. We know that we are being lied to, and that those lies result in great harm and injustice for many. We know that truth is not a crime. We stand with Julian Assange. We are all Assange. Free Julian Assange, free Julian Assange, free Julian Assange.
Free Julian Assange!
There's some news today. French parliamentarian and president candidate Jean-Luc Mélenchon has nominated Julian Assange for the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize. In a statement, he said, "Julian Assange is a hero of freedom. The WikiLeaks initiative has made it possible to publicise war crimes and serious violations of human rights. It is right that the peoples of the world express their gratitude to him." Jean-Luc Mélenchon went on to say that more than ever, Julian Assange needs the protection of the peoples of the world. Granting him the Nobel Peace Prize would allow it. Italian journalist Stefania Maurizi reported she has won an important freedom of information case in the UK concerning the rights of journalists and citizens to litigate freedom of information requests regardless of nationality, residency or territoriality. This decision should help her to obtain correspondence between the Metropolitan Police in the UK with the US relevant to WikiLeaks journalists Julian Assange, Kristen Hrafnsson, Sarah Harrison and Joseph Farrell, which have up until now been refused. Also, it has been announced this week a short messaging service known as PanQuake is being developed as a social media alternative to Twitter, which is expected to overcome censorship issues and will come with a secure direct messaging service. It will feature blockchain technology and it has Bill Binney, former NSA technical director and whistleblower, as one of the 22 experts on the technical team. So, going across State Street.
Hello, Sydney-siders. We are the Julian Assange Sydney Town Hall gatherers. We meet here every Friday from 5 till 7, basically to tell you about Julian Assange, an acclaimed Australian journalist, publisher, editor of WikiLeaks, and someone who has his life turned upside down for the last 10 years, who is in prison at the moment in a high security prison in Belmarsh, simply for publishing the truth about war crimes committed by the US and high-level government corruption in several countries. So Julian Assange is an Australian citizen, and you would think that the Australian government would therefore do something about his plight. Recently, in a court in the UK, it was decided that Julian Assange should not be extradited to the US, where he would face 175 years imprisonment, which is really a death sentence. So the court decided that he should not be extradited purely on medical reasons. Now, my query is, what of that is known or has been known to the Australian government for the last few years? And we are highly supported by many lawyers around the world. One of them, Ms. KELLIE TRANTER, who has carried out a number of freedom of information requests to the Australian government. And after many years of waiting for disclosure, she has managed to get the following information about what is known by the Australian government regarding Julian Assange's health. The first thing is that in April 2019, the Australian High Commission wrote to Julian Assange's lawyers saying that they had met with Julian and that Julian raised dental issues with prison authorities, and he also wanted urgent dental medical attention. He also wanted to know what had happened to his personal belongings when he was basically rendered to the police in the UK from the Ecuadorian embassy. And the Australian consular officer says they were waiting for a response to all of that. Then his lawyers wrote to the Australian consulate in the UK, and they said basically, these are urgent matters. We have no response from the Ecuadorian embassy about these issues, about material that is privileged legal and medical papers, as well as Mr. Assange's possessions generally. We have sent letters by post. They don't respond. What are you doing? They were asking for assistance to the Australian government, and the Australian government knew about those issues. They said, Julian Assange needs urgent dental treatment. He is in an acute crisis. He has an infected root canal. You would think that is the minimum any person in Australia would deserve. Some dental treatment when they are in an emergency situation. Julian Assange did not get it. He hasn't got it. And we're talking about April 2019. At the time it was very serious, because you know that if an infection spreads, it could also mean a life-threatening situation. They also asked that for the many years that Julian had been in the embassy, no one had given him access to the lawyers once he was rendered to the police in the UK. He wasn't getting any fresh air, he wasn't getting any exercise. Now I'm insisting on this because these are matters that are known to our government, to the Australian government. This is information taken from emails and official correspondence of the Australian consulate in the UK. Now we know also from the judgment of Magistrate Barreza that around the 5th of May 2019, they had found half of a razor blade in Julian Assange's cell. It was inside a cupboard and it was concealed under some underwear. This is an indication that Julian's state of mind was extremely imperiled and severely affected. At the time also he was visited by 2 medical experts with the rapporteur on torture, Professor Nils Melzer. Again, the Australian government knew about these matters, and they wrote to Julian's lawyers. There's a report from the Department of Foreign Affairs saying that they had visited Assange, and that Assange had expressed concern about surviving in this current process and fears that he would die if taken to the United States. This is black and white. This is information that the Australian government had and has, but has not acted on. The consular officers noticed that Julian had lost weight. He said he was not able to eat for a long period and was only eating small amounts of food. Now we know also from Judge Barreza's judgment that at the time in May, Assange was admitted to a healthcare wing in Belmarsh, and it was found that it was hard to control his thoughts of self-harm and suicide. I'm sorry to talk to you about these matters, but this is horrifying to me as an Australian citizen to know that a fellow Australian is in a prison, completely innocent, for over a year now, and that is in great need, urgent need of medical attention, physical and mental. The Australian government knows about it and says nothing and does nothing about it.
It's nearly 2 years.
I'm reminded here that it's really nearly 2 years that Julian Assange has been in Belmarsh prison now. Now, from Magistrate Barreza's judgment, we also know that this review of Julian Assange in the medical center in the prison indicated that he was finding it hard to control his thoughts of self-harm and suicide. And concerns were noted in the documentation about his health and his degree of intention to commit suicide. He had a plan for him, and they had to monitor him with observations and nocturnal checks. Following that, WikiLeaks, his publishing house, also made a public statement announcing grave concerns about the health of Assange. We have also been shown a disclosure of a cable from Canberra to London, consular file, saying WikiLeaks has tweeted today that Assange has been moved to the health ward and that WikiLeaks holds grave concerns for his health. And then, of course, the report of Professor Melzer, who said at the time that Assange was suffering from psychological torture. However, the response to all of this from our Australian representatives was that they believed that Assange was being treated appropriately in Belmarsh prison. How good is that? That's our government. That's our Prime Minister and our representatives overseas, basically saying that Assange is being treated appropriately in Belmarsh when we have volumes of evidence indicating that his mental health is in a crisis, that he's thinking of committing suicide, and that he will not survive if he's taken to the US. Once again, Assange consular file. Mr. Shipton, Julian's father, advised our Foreign Affairs Minister that he had learned overnight that Assange, again in August 2019, had been admitted to the prison sick bay. Now his lawyer here, Greg Barnes, had written to the Foreign Minister requesting the use of diplomatic sources to seek an independent medical assessment. That did not happen for many months. Another consular cable, property of the Australian government and only recently disclosed. Urgent, Julian Assange declining health for official use only. That means we're not supposed to know about these matters, that an Australian fellow, that an Australian citizen is in crisis overseas and that he could actually die overseas. It's only for confidential and only to be shown to Australian representatives, but they do nothing about it. That cannot be any more negligent, and also it cannot be more cruel. It is cruel for our government to know about these matters and do nothing about it. Another record from Assange's consular file. They had a telephone conversation with his father, and he informed them that Assange's brother Gabriel had recently visited Assange, and Gabriel was extremely distressed at Assange's deteriorating condition. Mr. Shipton advised that Gabriel had written to the Governor-General and Prime Minister to raise his concerns. Our representatives cannot hide anymore. We now know they have been fully informed about Julian Assange's gravely deteriorating health, and they have done nothing about it. Remember that that is the grounds on which the extradition has been denied. And if this is known by our government, again I ask, why are they not fulfilling their duties to protect our citizens? Why are they permitting that Assange be going slowly through a process of dying in a prison, in a high security prison, without having any contact or bare contact with his family? Why?
Criminals!
Mr. Assange's lawyers also brought up with the Australian consular officers and our government here that they did not know whether any member of the consulate attended the hearing in Westminster Magistrate Court. That was in late 2019, one of many hearings. If they had attended that hearing where they had sittings reserved for those consular officers, it would have been clear for everyone present in the court. They could have observed clearly, and it was also reported as such by the press present, that Mr. Assange was in shockingly poor condition, and that he, being a person of high intelligence, was struggling not only to cope, but to articulate what he wished to articulate. He could barely say his name. He could barely respond to questions by the magistrate. That was his health condition at the time and continues to be. Otherwise, Magistrate Bereza would not have denied the extradition request. Our government had every professional warning available, even from the prison itself. even from an independent doctor that was eventually called by Belmarsh, about Julian's precarious health condition, and our government has decided to ignore it.
Shame.
In a further visit by consular officers to Assange, and they're only sparingly made, Assange stated that he was suffering from sensory deprivation and that he felt he was dying. He said that his psychological state was so bad that in his mind he felt it was shutting down. He asked to see a doctor. He said that he had never been asked to provide consent or decline consent for the Australian government to have access to his medical file. He said he felt isolated in the prison, that it made it difficult for him to think or to prepare his defense. He had no access to a computer. He had no access to pens, to writing material. He could not write. He could not do any research to prepare his defense. He had not received legal documents. This is all information from DFAT records. Our government knows about it. Our Prime Minister knows about it. Our Minister for Foreign Affairs knows about it. But when he is asked about it in Senate committee inquiries, she denies it. She says this has not happened. She denies knowing about Julian Assange's health. Magistrate Perezza also said in her judgment that staff at the prison had recorded Julian Assange sleeping under his bed because he was hallucinating and he felt more secure under his bed. Magistrate Perezza, in her judgment, also noted that Julian Assange's depression was extremely severe in December 2019, that he had been diagnosed with a recurrent depressive disorder, sometimes accompanied by psychotic features, hallucinations, often ruminating suicidal ideas. His symptoms included loss of sleep, loss of weight, impaired concentration, and feeling of often being on the verge of tears, a state of acute agitation. He was pacing his cell until exhausted, punching his head or banging his head against a cell wall. This is a person in extreme need of medical attention, specialist medical, physical, and mental cognitive attention, and he has not been provided that attention. It befalls on our government to do so. They simply kept quiet. They said nothing until they were forced to release this information because of freedom of information requests by lawyers here in Australia. But we now know it. We must hold them responsible. We must write to our Maurice Payne. We must write to our Prime Minister. We must write to our shadow members of Parliament and say, now you have this information, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to secure Julian Assange's release? We know that he has this condition. It's not going to go away. He is severely depressed. He has already indicated his intention to commit suicide. He does not believe he will survive being sent to the US. You must stop this madness. You must stop this fraudulent extradition request. Parliamentarians, give us a hand. This is an Australian. Do more about it. Australians, write to your parliamentarians. We're talking about someone's life. We're talking about someone's family. We're talking about his kids. And we're talking about our freedom to know about it. Our freedom to know about what government does in our names. And we're talking about the freedom of expression, freedom of the press, journalists being protected to do their jobs.
enough of us get together, we can stop them. Because guess what? We outnumber them 100 to 1. So folks, stand up. Stand up or forever lie down. Stand up for your rights, your right to know, your right to have a free and independent and truthful media that keeps those in power honest. That is the purpose of a media. Without a media, you cannot have a democracy. A democracy does not function without free media. And the whole effect of what's happening to Julian is to discourage all the media from ever revealing any inconvenient truths, particularly war crimes, which is what Julian has revealed. War crimes, criminal behaviour. He's obliged in law to reveal those crimes. Otherwise, he's an accessory after the fact. Julian has not only done nothing wrong, he has done his duty to all of you. You must stand up and defend him. Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! For the 24 federal parliamentarians that are honest and care about you and care about Julian Assange and care about your right to know and care about justice and liberty and all the things that our forefathers fought for.
On camera?
Free Julian Assange.
Demand Julian Assange is released. Free press is under attack. Your right to know is under attack. Free Julian Assange. Sign the online petition. First they come for the whistleblowers, then they'll come for us. Free Julian Assange. Stand up for whistleblower David McBride, Afghan Files whistleblower. Exposing the war crimes that happened in Afghanistan.
Yes.
And for that, for defending innocent people being murdered, he is now being persecuted by our government, facing life in jail. We have to stand up for David McBride. Stand up for the truth. Democracy is under attack. Free speech is under attack. Whistleblowers are under attack. That means you're under attack. Sign the online petition. Free Julian Assange. Write to your local members. Demand Julian Assange is released. Free Afghan Files whistleblower David McBride. Stand up for our whistleblowers.
And David McBride stands up for Julian Assange as well.
Yeah, he does. Free David McBride. Free Bernard Corey. Free Witness K. I'm under attack and you're under attack.